Yay!
Hey!
You know why I'm excited about this show, Greg?
Why are you excited?
I'm always excited when I'm on the couch with you, because his show's called Off the Couch. Am I on the couch? Or is it
Yeah,
on the
baby,
couch?
we're on the couch
We
now.
are so on the couch.
No, that is off the couch.
Yeah, because it's August the 8th, and I'm one of those. Okay, here's how it works with Latinos. We have Catholicism, and we're talking about identity. We have Catholicism as our coverage, and then we have all kinds of woo-woo and superstitious stuff as like our gap coverage.
Ah, the Santeria.
Yeah. Like the Pope would not approve of our gap coverage at all. I don't know much about the new Pope, don't care. But here's the upshot, is that 8-8 we're right in the middle of what they're calling the Lion's Gate portal. Have you heard anything about this lining up of stars and whatnot?
Zero. Although you may have mentioned something earlier, my Teflon brain did not hold on to it.
Okay, well, it's a big deal. I'm getting messages from all my friends who know that I'm into that kind of stuff, that this is a very special day for, lining up what you want in your life. So the fact that I'm spending it
today
with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 8-8 is like a big thing, like the Mayan calendar. This is like this event called the Lion's Gate.
Oh.
And it's the stars in the sky are saying good things. I don't need stars in the sky to say good things. That's my identity as a positive person. I identify as positive.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah. So we should tell them about the show. Okay.
Yeah.
You're watching Friends with Privileges. I am Monique Marvez, comedian, writer, whatever, your buddy.
I'm Dr. Greg Cason, psychologist, whatever as well. I mean,
healer of people's splintered minds.
On a good day. But we'll do our best today. Yeah, we're here to talk about who do you think you are? I mean, we're here to talk about identity, which is a confusing concept for a lot of people.
Especially now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really confused about identity. We've gone through things like main character syndrome, which we're hearing a lot about now.
Main character syndrome.
I'll talk to you about that, which really kind of cracks me up because I think our generation is anything but we can talk about that. But there are different types of identities that we all go through and how we all move through the world, and having a clear sense of who you are and what you want will really lead you to the very best place.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you two things. Number one, when I was in Jerusalem, they told me there's a thing that happens to people because of the power of being in a city that's that old, that so much stuff has gone down in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Detroit, you know what I mean? Like, it's Jerusalem. And that people get this thing called the Jesus complex, where they take on weird identities. They start to think they're an apostle or Jesus, or it's a real thing that happens to people. Like, they flip their lid in Jerusalem. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of that, but I've always had a pet theory. This is really going off the rails and early, and maybe
I love going off the rails early in the show.
Offensive to some. But when I worked in the psych hospital, I used to work inpatient in a psych hospital. And at one point, we had several Jesus Christs, people who believed that they were Jesus.
I wonder if they visited Jerusalem.
Well, no, they were at the VA here in West LA.
Okay.
So anyway, we had several Jesuses, and then we kind of cracked up because they were friends and they would talk with each other, but they all still maintained that they were Jesus.
The real Jesus.
They were.
And the other guy's imposter Jesus.
Which was interesting. So, that was kind of an interesting experience, but it led me to question whether that phenomenon has just been that way throughout the ages, that there have been people who just believed absolutely that they were the Christ.
Now, is that, and I'm asking you for real, for clinical terms, would that be considered a delusion of grandeur?
It is.
So it falls under that.
It's a delusional belief. I mean, if we're really to put it into that category.
But when people say so-and-so's got delusions of grandeur, what is, because I'm always afraid that's me.
No.
I really
am. We use things in a kind of everyday parlance that don't really mean the same thing as they do in the psychology world.
Okay.
So, you can say a delusion of grandeur, which is basically a delusional belief, a delusional disorder, and the type.
But is it because they think they're all that, like on another level of thinking they're all that?
They are, and they do believe they're another level of all that, and it
See, I
could be
really
tied
think
to
I
something
am.
like a manic belief, or it could be just a
not.
belief that exists unto its own. But that's kind of here nor there. When we talk in human life, like when we're just talking with our friends, we say shit all the time.
Okay, fair enough. Because here's the thing, and you're my friend, so you know this. I have this insane off the chain optimism where I believe that my inner circle, and I'm very picky who's in my inner circle, but I strongly believe that if you're in the Mo zone, you can do anything. Like, I believe that. I had a boyfriend once tell me, he said, I love the way I look through your eyes. You make me believe I can do anything. I was like, you can. Like, you really can.
That to me is true love. I mean, really, that he could see that you valued him as a human being. So maybe you're just projecting love onto the people around you.
That could be, because
which is so amazing.
I have this weird thing that I do. I did it on stage in real time on Tuesday night at Yamashiro's, and it actually went over well, which is I jokingly say, if I were your manager, meaning when people manage a talent, they try to optimize and help the talent, because that's how they're going to make money, is if the talent gets booked and the talent goes far. So jokingly from the stage, I said, like, I have this game I play if I were your manager. And then I looked around the room. It was a small crowd. I go, you guys are good. And then I pointed to one guy and I like, that baseball cap is not doing you any favors. If I were your manager, I would tell you not to wear that cap because it makes your head look misshapen and kind of lumpy. But but I went on to say, it's the hat. You're actually handsome. Well, the hat is not doing you any favors.
You've used that exact line on me, not with a baseball cap, with another hat.
I hate that. Oh my God, I hate that hat. now you're gonna feel bad. Now you're gonna feel bad when you wear it. He has this like
kind of a safari hat.
No, it's not a safari hat. Baby lion country safari. Where the animals are drunk and sad. Oh my God, I'm sorry. You're probably gonna wear it next time.
I love Lion Country Safari, so it does make some sense.
Okay, fair enough.
But I worked at Jungle Cruise. I think it's very similar to a Jungle Cruise hat.
But see,
isn't that okay?
But see, this is part of when we're discussing delusion.
What kind of a delusional disorder is that? It's a fashion delusion.
I remember somebody once telling me that people that wear hats all the time are a little bit off. And I think he was just saying that to mess with me because I love hats.
I think more than 3 bumper stickers, really more than one, is really, that kind of says crazy to me.
I think, I'm going to be honest with you, 1 bumper sticker is a red flag. It's not a you're crazy, but it's like, I'm not sure that we should get into a deep conversation because they call it a bumper sticker mentality. There's a reason for that, because something is, it's jingoist, like it's very hard to put a sentiment, and I'm a comedian. I put things into very pithy, but going back to identity we've gone off the rails. It was your hat. It was that damn hat. But the point I'm making is that I always tell people, and now they use brand, marquee player.
I know.
When I work with people, friends, and I'm giving them advice, and I'm not even talking about like people I'm mentoring in comedy. I have a girlfriend, I'm not going to mention her name, Deborah. And I write all of her like dating things, like the profiles. I help her because I'm good with words,
You're
whatever.
Cyrano.
Yeah, I'm her. Yeah, and what
Cyrano.
and what I say is, let's start with the spine, which is what do you want them to know? What door do you want to come through? What is your biggest point of identity? That you're a businesswoman, that you're Jewish, that you're fit. Like, what is your door that you walk through in conversation when you first meet people? Because I believe that I'm unusual because I want to walk through the biggest door possible. So I walk through human. I've got no axe to grind. I've got no flag to fly. I don't need to beat the drum about I'm a woman or I'm Latina or
Catholic.
We're leaving that straight off the table. But the point I'm making is I think my point of identity is that I'm a hopeful human. I'm human and I have hope for the human race. I am an optimistic human. That is the door I walk through.
So I don't know that we've ever talked about this.
No.
But that is one of my biggest, if people really want to do important work that will really move them in therapy, it's really helping them to see that exact thing. It's really helping them to see that they are human at their core. They're like at their soul, that is a humanity that is no different than anybody else, than any other person in the room, than the cashier. There is no one above you and there is no one below you. Everyone is exactly the same. And on top of that, we build our identity.
Exactly.
And that's where I like to go with people. And I really do try to help them. But that leap is extremely difficult for people.
Really?
Extremely difficult.
Why?
Because they hold very tightly onto the stories that they tell themselves
Their
about
narratives.
who they are. Yes, about their narratives, yes.
One of the things that I try to do is use comedy as a Trojan horse to sneak stuff in. That's why I say I don't have jokes. I tell the truth and wrap it in bacon. And many years ago, 2010 to be exact, I wrote this manifesto about what I had learned. And one of the things that I wrote, and I have it almost memorized, but the one that always stands out for me, for 15 years it stood out, was everyone has a story they tell themselves to explain why they're not who they think they should be.
Oh.
Spell check only your own story. So I'm going to repeat that.
Yes.
Everyone has a story they tell themselves to explain why they're not who they think they should be. And then the little line after that was spell check only your own. So I've been chewing on that for 15 years. Just these, what I consider to be the truths of my life that I had learned. And then, I'm not going to say it's because we became friends, but you can take a little credit. About a year ago, you know, my life was already doing well, dry bar, blah, blah, blah. But a year ago was the first time I was on your show.
Yeah.
So about a year ago, I started feeling and leaning into a feeling of, what if you got rid of the whole story? How much room would you have in your brain? How much energy? How much freer? And I didn't do it right away, but I started walking in the direction of abandoning the entire story and replacing it with a bumper sticker thought, which is, it couldn't have gone any other way. And I started leaning hard into that in the fall on my birthday.
Yeah.
And I started really leaning into...
When you were also on my show.
Exactly.
Another time.
I was, because then it was once a month.
There.
Yeah. And we had balloons.
Yeah, we had balloons and birthday treats.
Optimistic person, optimistic human brings balloons to a birthday party. But I've lived for almost a year, because my birthday's in September, adapting, because we're a week apart. We're actually a week apart.
Yeah.
And I've leaned into strongly. It's not an overnight thing, because it's big. It's a big concept. But to lean into, it couldn't have gone any other way. And all that implies has been like a magic trick. This has been the happiest year of my life.
And is that the law of allowing?
I believe so. I believe it's a very simplistic way, but to allow... I think the problem is people allow the past to shape their future in negative ways. What if you flip the script and part of your identity was to allow that everything went perfect, or you wouldn't be you and you're perfect? How many times when we hang out do I tell you you're perfect?
Every single time. Every single time.
I think you're sick of
and
hearing
I don't think I ever say I feel bad, because I don't think I'm as effusive with you.
You don't have to be.
And I'm sorry about that.
You don't have to be, because number one,
That's my Catholicism coming out.
But here's the thing that I believe, and I have to do a sidebar.
Yes.
I work with this British...
Got the dry bar, got the
sidebar, dry bar. I've got a friend named Rachel Haunt. Look her up, Hawnt. I'm plugging all my friends. And she is a British diva, entertainer, singer who does an impression of Cher where you think you're seeing Cher.
Oh, wow.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So Rachel and I are on nice ships sometimes, and she's British. Like, she'll say, you know, hey, you want a cuppa? You know, like, let's have, she sounds like an extra on Downton Abbey because she's not fancy Brit. She's like gritty Brit. And she imitates me to perfection because she imitates Cher. She's a good mimic. She can mimic things. So we need to get Viagra to one of the ring lights, but that's okay. So she says to me in perfect Monique imitation, here's the thing. So every time I say, here's the thing, I picture her making fun of me in a loving way. But
here's the thing.
But here's the thing. I believe that people know things. What I, you know, they say your third eye, whatever you want to say, we know the truth about things. And I always say you should take responsibility for the truth you know, even if it's not obvious. So in the past, I have counseled, for instance, my brother. My brother, many, many years ago, was dating a young lady, and I am embarrassed, but I'm going to give you the full story because we objectified her. She was a pretty Asian girl in San Francisco who always wore floodwater pants and chunky shoes. It's a look that was very big, and now it's totally come back 20 years later. And I refer to it as Hong Kong pants. Talk about offensive. What you said before about Jesus, not offensive. Hong Kong pants, offensive. Because it's a look, and it's totally in style again, but I used to live in Koreatown, and look, I wish I could pull off Hong Kong pants. I can't. But it's a certain kind of petite, cute Asian chick that wears floodwater pants and chunky shoes. It was the precursor to anime. But anyway, so my brother was seeing, and by seeing, and I'm talking early 2000s before we had hookup culture lingo of Tinder, and I'm talking early 2000s, he was seeing this young lady in San Francisco who was attractive and Asian and young and just worshiped him, right? So he was, you know, doing the deed with her on a pretty regular basis. And this girl would like pick up his dry cleaning. She picked my mom up at the airport once. And she was working it. There's a good bad ending to this, but it's a good ending more than bad. And I kept telling my brother, no matter how many times you tell her that it's not serious, that it's friends with privileges, that it doesn't matter what your mouth says. It does not matter what your mouth says. I'm going to say it twice. It bears repeating. If you are spending prolonged periods of time with somebody and you are being physically intimate with them and you are saying nice things and you are letting them meet your mom, they are going to believe that no matter how many times your mouth says, hey, we're just having a good time, that there's something going on. And they feel it. And when he actually did call her on that, but I've been telling you all along, and kind of pulled back because there was another person he was interested in, she was devastated. And I don't know why I'm saying these, because I know none of my family cares what I do. They don't watch. So they don't even know what I do. So my brother called me once. It's true. He called me, and to his credit, he was sobbing.
They say I watch the clips.
Yeah.
I watch the clips.
I remember the phone call. It was in the spring of 2000. I'll never forget it. And he called me sobbing. Sobbing. I said, what happened? And he said, he didn't even call her Hong Kong, he called her name. He said, she left the office and moved to New York and left a note that said, I can't be near you. I felt this strongly and I'm not angry with you. I just can't be near you, and moved to New York.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, his devastation, whether it was shame, guilt, he had stronger feelings for her than he thought, a combo package. They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah. It actually made me feel better about him that he took it so hard.
That he wasn't using her.
Yeah, that he really did have strong feelings, because here's going back to us. I believe we know the truth, and you have to act on the truth. If somebody never tells you they love you, but they know, how to interact with you, and they make you feel loved, that is more important than the words, and you must act responsibly toward. It's a gift. It's a commodity. To whom much is given, much is expected.
Always.
So even though you're not as effusive as I am, it's just personality types. You always make me feel very, very important and loved, and you're amazing. And I believe
Thank you.
that it's so important that your words line up with your intentions, line up with, I mean, isn't that what identity is? Being in alignment with what you think you're projecting?
So
I know that's a big question, but he's a doctor.
I want to answer that question, but you also said it couldn't have gone any other way, and it's been stuck in my head the whole time.
Okay, you can address
Can
that
I go
first.
there?
Go everywhere you want.
The hardest thing for me is because I've had a couple of, what are they, tragedies? They're just life events that have happened in the last year. My sister and my brother died in unrelated deaths just in the last
7 months.
6-7 months, yeah. And and the bottom line is it's hard to land on that it couldn't have happened any other way. And I think part of the acceptance process is getting there, but it's a process rather than an outcome.
It took me a year, and I haven't had those strong of tragedies. And it took me a year to be able to get to the point where when my mom lovingly said, you know, sweetheart, it was a double standard. I was harder on you than your brothers. Like, she said a bunch of very true, very loving things. And she gave me a heartfelt, it wasn't like full on, like, I'm sorry for XYZQM, but it was a heartfelt, you are correct. I absolutely gave your brothers a pass, and I absolutely gave you a bunch of crap. And my reaction now versus what it would have been was, thank goodness, if you were nice to me, I wouldn't be a comedian. Like if whatever the grit in the oyster that made the pearl, I'm the pearl. I'm really happy with my life. And I
But not everyone develops into a pearl, and I think that's part of the issue. Or the pearl, perhaps for some, is misshapen from the grit that they're given. So, I mean,
like a freshwater pearl. I do. I like them elongated, lumpy, with ridges.
I mean, you're exactly right.
Unique. They're unique.
There's so much about childhood that helps us develop into the person we are. And, even people, this is where I've been really have to laugh, because I know people who have had extremely functional families, backgrounds, and raising who still have issues. And I'm very happy about that.
Oh.
Because I mean, in my family, you could point clearly, like everybody could point with a giant Sharpie where the issues were. There was no question what was going on.
Right.
But in some families, they look much more functional, and they have these kind of happy lives.
But the big person that could be circled in the Sharpie thought they were all that and just fine.
That person still thinks they're all that and just fine. Yes.
Yeah, no, I get it. One of the things...
And there's fallout. There's not just one person, but there's fallout.
No, of course, because it's a trickle down.
Yeah.
It didn't work for Reagan, but it worked in your house. Here's what I'll tell you about why I'm the luckiest girl in the world, is because my dad was manic depressive. That's what they used to call it back in the day. And when I did my Showtime special, Scott Montoya, my producer, he said, Monique, do you want to do any kind of dedication? We can do a dedication that'll show on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And I gave it a lot of thought, and I said, I'd like to thank my mom for being good in a crazy way, and my dad for being crazy in a good way.
Oh, my God. What a great, great thing to say. Because both of those are lovely.
Thank you. And I meant them. Because my mom really believes that the ends justifies the means, whether it's her judgment, whether it's her little white lies, whether it's the, telling this guy a story and telling that guy to make some kind of chain reaction. Like, whatever she did, she believes she did it from love, that there was a good reason, and the ends justifies the means.
Well, and in fact, what you're saying to your mom is, I see that you were good. You were trying hard. You were doing good.
Absolutely.
But, it just didn't come out quite the way we
kind of wackadoo.
But then with your dad, that shows you adored him.
Oh, are you kidding me? I have a line in my one-woman show that I say, my father left me nothing except everything I am. Mm-hmm. And I believe that with all my heart. But he used to say things that were contradictory because of his own moral code. And when I was about 17 and happy, I looked at him and I said, 80% of the time, you are a despicable human being. You're the worst. You're a liar. You're a womanizer. You're a cheat. You cut corners. I think he might be a sex addict. I don't want to go into it. But I just jokingly laid him out. But then the punchline was, but the 20% that matters, that changes the grade point average of humanity, that shapes and forms people, you're the best. And I meant it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80% of the time, unimportant stuff, despicable. 20% of the time, supportive, loving, you can do anything. My dad used to call me on my birthday, which is why I worry about having delusions of grandeur. Every year on my birthday, my dad would call and leave me a very long message, first with the tapes, then with the cell phone, then, the newer cell phones. And he would say, and he'd talk like, "Happy birthday, my daughter. If the only reason I was born was to participate in the creation of such a magnificent human being, then my life will have been worth it just to see you grow into the person you are today. I would wish you a happy birthday, but that would mean that your birthday was different than any other day. And it isn't, because every day you are the light of my eyes and the reason I breathe."
Wow.
Yeah, like that. Like every year it was a little different, but that's a good one. And the reason I know it is because I would play it for my friends when they would ask, like, "You're always happy. You're like you always act like you have some kind of like rainbow midgets flying out your ass or something." Like, because people really couldn't stand, they thought it was an act. Was that wrong to say that? Little piece. Tony looked at me. Tony stand.
No, it's the rainbow word.
Yeah, little. Is rainbow a bad word?
I don't know.
Well, little people. But when people get really fed up with my optimism and the way I move through the world and the way I think, I would play them my dad's birthday message and say, like, "This is what formed me." And then they would be like that. But it is so important to let people know, this is who I am in relationship with who you are. And that's why identity matters, because finding the likeness, I asked you a question and you said, "Can we go on? It couldn't have gone any other way."
Yeah.
But then where did I derail
Well, you were kind of talking about this topic that you are right now, which is about identity. And I don't remember, I'm sorry, the exact
No
words.
worries.
But I
do
will
that to
say,
him.
and I'm sorry for...
No, it's my fault.
No,
Derailed
it's
you.
mine. I derailed. I pulled it away because I wanted to go down a different road. But what I will say is that if we start from that point of humanity, going all the way back through that door you walked through, that point of humanity that we all share, we also all have identity on top of that. So we've got to realize at our core, we're all exactly the same.
I believe that.
That the identity on top of that is shaped by maybe some biology, but certainly by our environment. And then, you go through a bunch of learning lessons that go out through life, and you develop this way of seeing yourself in the world. And that is the bottom line of the way you're developing when you're young, is generally for protection of all things. You're trying to protect yourself. So you start to see yourself in a particular way. And generally what happens when I work with people is they develop a whole slew of I ams about themselves. So it's basically, I am whatever, but generally if they're in therapy, it's something like I'm worthless, I am inept, I'm horrible, I am, there's something wrong with me, blah, blah, blah. These kinds of I ams. And they might have a series of I ams about other people, I ams that,
And it's his fault.
Yeah, it's his. Other people don't listen to me, they don't care about me, they're violent toward me, whatever you see, because of the experience they have. And so they start to navigate the world in this way, and then see the world in a particular way too, the world being, a dangerous place or whatever. And that kind of rubric, then, they like the grain of sand that lands in the pearl, they have to develop a way of being in the world so that those never get touched. So they start to develop a protective layer around it. And that really starts to show to the world who they are. And so if I think I'm worthless, maybe I might say, well, I'm not worthless if I become a huge success. Maybe I'm not worthless if I have academia, maybe I'm a good athlete. Maybe I could get everyone to love me. You know, there could be a bunch of different strategies I use to start to develop that. And then that becomes this way in the world. So that's why I think identity can be a little bit complicated in that particular way. But if you can be clear at the bottom that you're a human being, no different than any other, it's extremely freeing, because then you can also be a little bit freer to go and have compassion towards yourself when you start to see yourself in negative ways, when that little grain of sand gets exposed, when you start to see.
Like when I was on KFI, my boss used to tease me, Robin. She would say, everybody thinks you're one of them, because on the air, you don't talk about things that anybody can get a particular handle or hook. You used to listen to me.
Yeah, I did.
And people would assume that I was whatever they are. I would get emails, like one lady would constantly ask me, are you a Christian? That was like her big deal. Are you a Christian? And I finally said, are you going to like me better or worse? Like more or less? Like, why are you asking the question? And she was like, well, you talk like a Christian. And I said, well, you know, there was a person, a prophet, like that's indisputable. And I believe you could never go wrong living a Christ-like life.
I
that was my answer.
I agree.
So she was an artist, like a rock painter, and she actually painted a rock with Jesus's face on the front and that saying on the back. But I think that's the most direct answer I ever gave anybody about anything. Because I always want to ask them, when you ask me about myself, why? Like, why do you need to know a specific about me? How do you feel around me? Do you like me? Do I make you comfortable? Do I make you uncomfortable? Because I feel like it's always like they want to know if you're on their team, whatever their team is, if it's team recovery or team politics or team, whatever their point of identity is. Because you know how some people really lead with certain things.
With their team, yes.
They lead with the team,
Yeah.
And they want to know, are you on my team? And that, if I have to say something that's a bit of a turnoff, I'm not a team person. I'm a thinker. I'm a critical thinker.
Very much.
I'm a critical thinker. I have friends that on paper, you would not imagine we would be friends. But because I know what's, like you say, what's under all the candy coating, you know, what's in there, we're friends.
Only a couple of times in my life have I felt like I was on a team, honestly.
Okay.
And it was both nightclubs.
Really?
Not kidding. Like, there was a
gotta hear about
nightclub in
this.
New York called Danceteria.
I remember Danceteria. Madonna used to go there all the time.
Yeah,
I remember
it was
reading about it.
Such a cool place. It was down the street from where I lived, and it was such a cool place. I always felt great there. And there was another one here in LA called Cherry.
Cherry.
And Cherry
I've never heard of Cherry.
was a very short-lived, but it was a really, really cool place. It played great music, and that to me is how you get to me. And that's why I just felt like this was my place. These were my people. And the one thing about the people is
kinds attract.
you couldn't have lined them up and said, oh, they all have this in common. It was an extremely eclectic crowd. But what we all loved was the music.
So are you saying that I believe in this stuff. Do you think there was sort of a mass consciousness that occurred when everybody got together at Danceteria?
I was maybe too young when I went to Danceteria. To me, Danceteria was like not a church, but it was like a place that I just always loved to go because I always felt so happy there. Just walking the halls with Keith Haring doing, the graffiti on the walls. It was just an amazing place.
It's funny you should say that, because when I was about the same age that you're talking about being that age, there was a place in Miami called Biscayne Babies.
Yeah.
And it was actually like written up back when Playboy still mattered. And it was like considered one of the funnest nightclubs in the country. You remember when they would write up those lists and all of that business, and it made a list in Playboy evidently because they had it framed. But this what I loved about Biscayne Babies was the DJ. It was kind of this weird nightclub pickup spot diner. Like there was a diner restaurant attached to the dance area.
Yeah.
So that if you didn't want to dance and sweat, you could go in this classic black and white checkered floor diner and eat.
Cool.
And sometimes you could just be out of sort of the nightclub part and be in like the fun diner part. And some of the funnest nights of my life were sort of before I was ever a comedian, like holding court. Like I just remember some guy saying like something baby, and I said, no, my first name ain't baby, it's Janet. And then all my friends are Miss Jackson if you're nasty. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody kind of joined in the good time. And again, I do believe that I do believe in mass consciousness. I do believe things happen at concerts and when you're all seeing the same
Yes,
event.
that's why I've had that experience. Was at a concert or like these nightclubs, or when you felt, and I've felt it with comedians too, when I've been in the audience, when you're all kind of connected in a way, or with a certain theater experience. Yes, laughter. When you really feel that connection with everybody in the room. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel it's a team against anybody else. And maybe that's the difference. The only time I've ever felt that way is when I felt connected to others. I've never felt like I was against or better than or worse than anybody else. Me either. And that's why even a lot of my friends, and you know my pat answer is always, I'm not political. I have people that don't think like me, and I don't care. And I think that's really rare. I have friends that can no longer be friends with people because of who they voted for, what they think. And what I always do is I ask them, I say, why is this event or this situation important to you? Why do you think it's a good thing? And I don't say it with any ounce of cynicism or sarcasm, or no matter what you say, you're not going to change my mind. Because in a weird way, I think when something it's Freud's pleasure principle. You know, you can only be as happy as you've been sad, which means you're in for a good year next year. All right.
Right. But you know what I mean? Like, even if you're very far and it's very challenging, if you bridge that, it's going to be so much more satisfying than if you think exactly the same as the person. So when I have somebody that thinks very differently than me, and I believe them to be worth the effort, because it's not everybody, I will ask them, I very much want to understand why this means so much to you. And when you really listen to people and hear them out, even if it doesn't change how I feel, the process of listening without genuine judgment of whatever it is they're saying and letting them speak and letting them make their points, I have found it has made people with diametrically opposed whatever ideologies like me more and me feel closer to them, as opposed to, that's what you're thinking, we can never be friends. I almost never think that of other people.
Neither do I. Maybe that's why we're friends. I wish I could provide a counterpoint, but what I always try to do is try to connect with people, and maybe partly I just got used to doing it in my work, that it's, you know, that I worked with so many people who are so wildly different than myself.
But you work with crazy people, and you're sane.
I don't know that. I wouldn't classify either one.
Okay,
I wouldn't
enough.
say I'm sane, nor I would say they're crazy. But I would say
you're
that
a good man.
People have all been, I've worked in many people in many different settings. I remember where I was doing interviews for UCLA, and I had to go to rural Alabama. No, it was, Arkansas, little rural Arkansas. And this guy took out his gun and was shooting down the hall, trying to show me his gun. Yeah. And I saw a woman shoot up in front of me who was pregnant, and I had to deal with that. Yeah, I mean, I dealt with very, very specific situations.
If she wasn't pregnant, I wouldn't care, but pregnant bothers me.
Well, I mean, this is the life of an addict. I mean, it's a tough road.
It's a tough gig.
So anyway, long story short this is when I was doing that kind of work at that time. And in many ways, it helped me to get into these people's worlds and see worlds like you do as a comedian when you do stand-up all over the country.
All over the world.
I mean, that's the thing, is you're connecting with people who are different everywhere. And I think a lot of people don't get that benefit. It was one of the greatest benefits of my life when at UCLA, I was a student. I'm not a student. I had graduated, and I was working in research. And one thing, I worked up my way to be able to do these traveling interviews, and I went to prisons and jails and homes and things of people who are either cocaine addicts and have been to treatment or heroin addicts and had been to treatment. And we were following up on what kinds of treatments work the best.
Which were? Just out of curiosity?
Anything. Believe it or not. This is
why I asked.
This is the trip of that extensive research, and it was duplicated by another multi-site study. It's when they do lots of different places. It was duplicated in a wider study. We did our study at UCLA, and then we were part of a much wider study that included a lot of other universities. And the bottom line is what we discovered was there was no superior treatment. What was the superior treatment was the treatment you were willing to get, willing to sit in. So if it is going inpatient, going outpatient, doing 12-step, doing a combination, doing a supported living arrangement, which that's a type of treatment. There are so many different halfway house, whatever it is you decide to go into, as long as you are there participating in the community, you're much more likely to stay sober. The minute you stop those treatments, bets are off.
Rate of recidivism is 98% on addicts.
And I would say that most people are not participating in treatment of that number.
Proactively.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to be proactive. Now, I want to circle back to identity. How many people do you think, because we've talked about a lot of identities, whether it was Catholic, whether it was female, whether it was sexuality, whatever, how many people do you think know who they are?
Well, like I think I said in your 330, was that if you stare too much at yourself, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror and you start to get that kind of drug-like feeling that you're looking out into a million different places. You get a little bit derealization. So the thing I always encourage people to do, rather than ask, who am I? Because I think ultimately we could ask that question for the rest of our lives. We can say, if we understand that we're a human being, no different than any other, we're all here on earth. My belief is that we're all here to connect. We're all here to connect with each other in a greater good. That's what, when I look at stories of great religious leaders, when I look at this story of connection, of wanting to heal the world and make it a better place.
That's why we get along.
I don't see that in a negative way.
That's why we get along.
But I also see that one thing we can do is, on top of our humanity that we all share, is to be able to say, what is it that I want to do in the world? What can I contribute? What path can I walk down? And for me, it was the psychology path. That's what really drew me. For you, it was the comedy path. But we have much in common, and you think very deeply. You're not just...
I'm a big thinker.
You're a deep... In a way, I admire... No, I think... I mean, I love it. I don't know what to say. I completely...
I go down rabbit... What he's saying, because we're friends...
Comfortable with you.
I go down rabbit holes of... If I had to say, I'm extremely curious.
You're extremely curious, and I really love that. It's almost relaxing for me, and I know that seems bizarre, because I'm almost like, I don't have to think. I can sit back and let Monique do the thinking.
Well, I'm just super curious. Like when we set up these topics, and we always do a breakfast before the podcast, and we kind of kick around, we're going to discuss identity. And then I will start like Googling, like, how many people, and I love that you brought to the table that people in psych wards think they're Jesus, because I think a lot of people have a deep savior. Jesus is the obvious, but like savior
More
complex.
More savior complex, yeah. More manic, yeah.
I think one of the reasons that everybody loves The Matrix is because everyone secretly thinks they're the one. Everyone thinks they're Neo.
But didn't you love... What I loved about that story in The Matrix, just to go way off the field, is that the Oracle, what was her name?
Love her.
She said, you're not the one, kid.
Well, she said, I hate giving bad news to good people. Trust me, I know that movie.
Oh, yeah. But she says that, and he walks out disappointed, and they didn't want to know because what she told him what he needed to know.
Well, she said, it's like being in love. She said, being the one is like being in love. You just know it, balls to bones. Like,
and then he eventually did see it
on his own.
Yeah, but he had to do that on his own rather than being told by somebody else, and he had to kind of connect. And what I thought was so interesting, why I love the story of this, is I wonder if he was really all that different than anybody else. That's the point, yes, that he was just like everybody else, but he saw through and was able to rise up. He was the one, but was he deemed by a higher deity, or did he just rise
not to
it?
go too deep into the matrix, because I can. What I tell people, and it's even what my yoga instructor tells me, because I take hot yoga, and you don't know misery until you're taking hot yoga on a hot day in LA, because you don't cool off. But the thing she always says is, don't think about what's after class. Don't think about, she says, stay on your mat and do what comes next. Just the next move.
I love that.
Stay on your mat and just do the next thing.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
I give instructions like that to people all the time. Just do the next thing.
That's the thing. So what was very interesting, and I use this analogy in my own life, I use it on my friends, even when, and even if you haven't seen the movie, you can figure it out. Even when Neo didn't know he was Neo, when somebody said, Morpheus believes it so strongly that he's willing to sacrifice himself. So the reality is, his identity didn't matter. Neo's identity didn't matter. He did the next thing, which is risk himself to save Morpheus because he loved him. His identity was, the next thing is, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I will not allow this man who loves me, forget the sacrifice, just loves me and is part of my life, an important part of my life, to die. So the next thing is to save him. And the reason I tell people that is because all you have to do is know what's the most important next thing to you, and then your identity will actually reveal itself. Whether the next thing is, I'm going to join a march because this is important to me, or I'm going to strike, or I'm going to pick someone up at LAX, which is the deepest sign of love anyone can ever show. But the next thing is really your priority in life. And when I say that, what I mean is, if the next thing you do is obligation and you hate it, and you're doing it because you think you have to, then you're that person. You're that person that, and I texted this to a friend. I said, you're more afraid to break promises to other people than to break promises to yourself. And that's why you're unhappy. Because she was like, I can't figure out why I'm unhappy. And I was like, I'll tell you.
Yeah, no, I agree. To me, it comes down to core values of what we have. And values
what you prioritize.
You can say what your values are, but really you need to have your values revealed. Like, you need to understand what your values are. You're already acting on them. And they could be family, religion, it could be work.
You go to church. Church is a value.
It could be a lot of things that are big, that are really big in a person's life. That they're basically, to me, like, values are a point on the horizon, and goals, or the next thing, could be just signposts along the way. They just kind of help us know we're heading toward the value, but a value is never something you can fully achieve.
Really?
Like, how do you ever fully achieve family? You just continue to live.
To work on it.
To work on it.
I like that.
And anytime you start to veer from that goal, or from that value of working toward, developing your family, growing your family, loving your family, caring when they hurt, When you let's say you're not there that night for some reason, maybe you're out drinking at a bar, let's say, and then you feel horrible and awful about doing that, that's because it violated your value. And then because you all of a sudden were doing this thing that wasn't in line with the person you really want to be in the world.
I love that. And I'm going to add to that. There's a hotel in Le Pavillon in New Orleans. If we ever go, do the podcast from there.
Yes.
I'm hoping we can make that happen.
Yes.
That serves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches at midnight.
Yes.
Because there was a man who was away from his family.
Yeah.
And he was a businessman, and he didn't like being away from his family, and he was always hungry because he would call his family at night. And as a thing, the hotel started a tradition of bringing him, it's not even official room service. They loved that he valued himself as a family man, so they brought him peanut butter and jelly.
Isn't that amazing?
And I remember I think there's even a movie called The Family Man with Nicolas Cage, probably 20-something years old. I remember when men took pride in saying, I'm a family man.
Yes, absolutely.
When they, it wasn't, I get up and I hustle and grind. Like, that's a new thing now. Everybody wants to be identified as the person that hustles and grinds, and I know that sounded mean and judgmental. I kind of meant it.
No, but I would be really bugged by somebody who says I hustle and grind. Anybody who
But don't you see memes about that all the time?
Anybody who, I don't, because thank God I'm not on the algorithm. And I don't, so thank also God.
Does that mean I'm a hustling grinder?
No, people do this. They put all this, I know they do, I did a whole, let's say they do 30 seconds of little clips of themselves getting up, drinking coffee, doing push-ups, running on the beach, look how amazing they are.
It's like a Rocky montage.
Look at drinking raw eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and they...
Only Rocky can pull that off.
And then post it on Instagram, and I'm sorry if you are the one out there that's doing it, but wow, that isn't your value. Your value is that you want to be loved. You want someone to recognize you. You're desperate.
And your efforts.
Yes, you're desperate to have someone say, good job. And so you get 4,000 likes, and then you feel okay about yourself for what? A day or two? And then it's back to the hustle and grind.
It's a lot of editing.
It's a lot of editing. So, good. I'm glad people have that. But the self-congratulations and the that's, to me, is a little bit more grandiosity than what you're concerned about.
Really? So I'm not delusional?
I'm sorry.
Thank goodness. No, seriously, I worry sometimes.
I think it's good to believe in yourself. I truly do. I truly do think it's good to believe in yourself. And I think that, don't mix that up with believing something that's not within the realm of reality, which would be delusion.
Okay.
So you can believe in yourself, you can push hard and higher, you can want more and go for it. And that, to me, is how you really progress in the world. I would not be who I am had I not been continually hungry to achieve.
And to learn. You're always in school.
And to learn. And I still learn. That's all that's one reason I started that podcast, because I wanted to, all I did was read research on my own, and I was trying to say, I want to share this with other people.
It for others,
so I tried to figure out a way to do that.
You can plug your own podcast now.
Oh, Off the Couch with Dr. Greg.
Yep. And I'm going to do it again at some point soon. I love being on his podcast because it's very different than this one. This one, we're on the couch. And it's very more, mine's, ours.
Ours, but you know what? I think we're
feeling it out.
I might like this better.
Really? Well, here's the thing about, I heard Rachel
just
in my head.
Because I love you and I love spending time with you.
Mutual.
And that, there you go. Now you all know.
No, it's a big, it's a secret. Here's what I will say about when we were discussing identity. Yeah. I think another thing that makes us such good friends is that we do vibrate, interact, converse, and move through the world on the highest level. Like, what do? We go to Disney. We laugh. We eat good food. There's no, in a weird way, I believe that when you're in alignment with the people around you, because when you say nobody's better or worse, or I believe that in my soul. And even saying that, like if people are, what's a soul? Okay. I believe that on a cellular, on an intellectual front of the brain, but also unconscious. Like if you wake me up in the middle of the night and shake me, I'm going to be the same person. Like it's not a thing I've got to
I'm the same.
Get ramped up and like, okay, let's go hustle.
Showtime.
Let's go hustle and grind. You know, like, oh, I love that, all that jazz. It's showtime, folks. But that being said, not only do I believe that I can do anything, I genuinely believe that anyone can. When people tell me, oh, you're so curious, or you're so intuitive, or you're this, or you're that, or I talk about having, the voice, I say, every single thing is a visible or invisible muscle. It's your choice to exercise it. Everyone has a voice or is intuitive. Everyone can be curious about something that matters to them, whether it's video games or there is something in your world that will generate whatever you think you're seeing in me. I just know what mine are, but you have the same. I believe everybody has the same stuff, just the volume is higher or lower, and we can raise and lower our own volume when we decide we want to or take the time.
And this is why I think, this is one thing I think I like being around you, because I feel like maybe going all the way back to what you said that earlier, which is when people are around you, they expand essentially. And I do believe you are correct in that I love to engage in the possibility of being an even bigger and better me. I think we all do. And I think that's why people tune in to you and why people love you.
I feel that way about them.
Yes.
I genuinely see, that's why I have the game if I were your manager. Because when people come to me with an open hand and they say, I want to be more fill in the blank. I want to be more present, or I really want to lose. This is a big one because I lost weight when women don't lose weight. When I was perimenopausal, I decided I'm not fat, but I'm not comfortable being a little chubby. I'm going to work on that. And I lost 30 pounds.
Now you look amazing.
Thank you, that I've never gained back because I decided to really go into it. You know how I do with curiosity, because if it was just calories and working out, everybody be thin. But it's not like that. And I realized you can't take the pounds off until you take the weight off. The invisible. Nobody's fat because they're having a party and loving life. I have nobody.
No.
If you're chubby, you are weighed down by something.
No one is Bacchus.
No. There's a handful of people, maybe, that just really like food for no reason. Handful.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I went deeper. I knew I was an emotional eater, but what was the emotion? What was the trigger? Why was it there? And I figured out that food was my friend. It was a leveler. I got to the core, which isn't, yes, of course, I like to eat when I'm happy. I like to eat when I'm sad. I like to, but the reality is the trigger was when I felt out of balance, when something in my life was making me feel shaky. Food was my leveler. It was that bar on the high wire. And when I could isolate the triggering emotion, so now that I figured it out, I give other people the cosmic hack. I go, first, let's take the weight off before we take the pounds off, and let's figure out specifically what the weight is. But I thoroughly believe with all of my soul that everybody is a type of computer, and it's just whatever the programming that needs a little something.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
And that's my identity. Optimistic human.
And I can't think of a better note to end on than to be optimistic. Thank you.
Tell him about following and sub. Yeah.
What?
You know how you say, watch us, like us, subscribe. He's very good at the important stuff.
Watch, watch, you just did. Thank you for doing that. Go down to that button down there. Subscribe, whatever the other button is. It's one of them. And check us out. We're going to keep coming back and doing these every month.
We're going to expand because now we're comfortable and we want to be able to take questions. We're going to do some live. We're going to interact. There's a lot of good things coming in the future of Friends with Privileges, but this was our 6th show. It was our half-year mark. We've been very much brainstorming on how to take it to another level.
Yeah.
But that requires us being comfortable and loose, and we're about as loose as we'd be
I think extra loose.
in our pajamas.
But I know, just a little bit short of that. But we really appreciate you being here and sticking around and listening. We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you so much.
I'm
Really
Monique
means a lot.
Marvez.
And I'm Greg Cason, Dr. Greg Cason, Dr.
Don't
Greg,
leave that
whatever
out.
that
Went to
is.
school.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.